Global news.
Ready, set, gone. The N.F.L's disappearing huddle. For more than a century, the huddle has been one of the most defining fixtures of American football, a sacrosanct 11-man oval where the likes of Johnny Unitas reshaped plays on the fly, Joe Montana cracked jokes to soothe anxious teammates, and Roger Staubach diagnosed the hurt, the tired and the spitting mad. But in today's N.F.L, the huddle is slowly disappearing. In the pursuit of more scoring, teams now employ some form of a hurry-up operating system aptly called the no-huddle offense. It is as it sounds, players darting from one play to the next. Huddles remain the pervasive norm, but increasingly, many are condensed to several harried seconds, as quarterbacks bolt to the line of scrimmage and rely on hand signals and code words to communicate a new play to teammates as they line up. This season, some offenses have spent nearly half a game 25 plays without stopping to huddle. Many teams' defensive units huddle even less often. As a trend, it is viewed as inevitable innovation, and most in the N.F.L expect the pace to quicken unabated in coming seasons, a transformational jolt to an old-style league. The no-huddle offense does take away a bit of the traditional look of a football game, said John Mara, an owner of the Giants whose family has been in the N.F.L since 1925. Just part of the evolution of the game. Continue reading the main story. But what is lost if one of the most recognizable features of football becomes a footnote to the game? Isn't the huddle's demonstrated sense of community part of football's soul? The huddle has been romanticized, with good reason, said Joe Theismann, a Washington Redskins quarterback for 12 seasons and the league's most valuable player in 1983. We did it so often. I know people wondered what was going on in there. Personally, I always found it fascinating that the crowd noise would be deafening but the huddle was usually a very, very quiet place. Roger Staubach, the fabled leader of the 1970s Dallas Cowboys and a Heisman Trophy winner, said the huddle was the best time to take the pulse of a team. As players in the huddle, you're all alone in the middle of the field but together at the same time, Staubach said. You see who is hurt, who's tired or who's spitting mad. You can take that all in, which can be powerful. Michael Oriard, a former center with the Kansas City Chiefs, an All-American at Notre Dame and the author of books on football culture, called the huddle a sacred place, because it belonged to the players and not the coaches. There was bonding and a kind of sharing of intensity, Oriard, a professor emeritus at Oregon State, said. Late in a game, you look around at the faces of your teammates and it's unspoken, or sometimes spoken, this is our last chance before time runs out. It's a communal experience that will be lost. Today's N.F.L players, for the most part, do not feel the pull of the huddle in the same way. There's always been some allure of the huddle where people imagine Ray Lewis or some star player yelling and pumping up the whole team, Philadelphia Eagles safety Malcolm Jenkins said. That's an image on TV and in Hollywood movies. But that doesn't really happen now. Everything is happening so much faster that a whole conversation might be communicated in just a look. There's no time for theatrics. Spencer Long, the center for the Washington Redskins, said the terminology of the modern N.F.L play is so complex it has overwhelmed the traditional huddle. We have plays that are like 20 words long, so there goes the break time in the huddle, Long said. And each part of that long play call is aimed at a different part of the team. So people's minds are going in different directions. Frankly, it's almost as easy to signal all that without taking the time to get together. One of Long's teammates, outside linebacker Ryan Kerrigan, said the crowd was so noisy during home games that the defensive unit could not hear what was said in a huddle anyway. If we have to talk, it's one-on-one when you shout in someone's ear, Kerrigan said. Defenses in general are growing more averse to huddling. Before each play nowadays, the middle linebacker simply shouts and signals the defensive scheme called by a sideline coach. The disappearing huddle is also a function of logistics. The N.F.L. is now a pass-happy league, so it is common for a host of players on both sides of the line of scrimmage to have to dash downfield for 50 yards on several successive plays. Do you know how much energy I would waste if I had to run back to a huddle after every sprint down the field? Jenkins said. That's why I don't even try. Even the kickers don't enter a huddle any longer. Not really, Washington's Dustin Hopkins said. Everybody already knows their job on the play. The origin of the huddle appears to date to the 1890s, when it was first used by players at a school for the deaf, Gallaudet University, where quarterbacks had been communicating to teammates using sign language. Because both teams in games were often from schools for the hearing impaired, the opposition could easily discern the coming play call by watching the quarterback's hands. Gallaudet quarterback Paul Hubbard's solution was to summon teammates into a huddle that shielded his team's intentions. The practice spread throughout football, especially as teams left behind primitive, run-only schemes for more sophisticated formations that included forward passes. Various other universities have staked a claim to inventing the huddle, including Illinois, Georgia, and Oregon, although a majority of early 20th century football historians point to Hubbard and Gallaudet, in Washington, D.C. What is certain is that a huddle soon followed every play as football spiked in popularity. Stories from and about the huddle, a unique convention in a major American sport, began to color the historical narrative of the game, whether it was the 1939 Heisman Trophy winner, Niall Kinnock, exhorting teammates in the huddle during an upset of Notre Dame or Baltimore Colts quarterback Johnny Unitas reconfiguring his team's pass routes on the fly in the huddle. Befitting a rough game in which tempers run hot, the huddle was also the place where teammates clashed and railed against one another for missed tackles or dropped passes. On the flip side, it could also be used as the setting to calm frayed nerves. In the Super Bowl in 1989, the San Francisco 49ers trailed by 3 points with a little more than 3 minutes remaining in the game. In the huddle before a final drive that began at the San Francisco 8-yard line, Montana noticed that his teammates seemed more tense than usual, especially tackle Harris Barton. Spotting the comedian and actor John Candy in the stands, Montana tapped Barton and said, "Look, isn't that John Candy?" Barton smiled. The 49ers scored the game-winning touchdown in the final minute. Sometimes the huddle is the place to make a joke so everyone can relax and just go about their jobs, Montana recalled later. The huddle became so prominent culturally it even went through a period of renovation, like a living room redesigned into a more open concept by a home decorator. Near the middle of the last century, some teams, most notably the Chiefs of the renegade American Football League, chose a more accessible huddle by forming 2 rows, like a small choir group. 10 players would have their backs turned to the opposition while facing the quarterback as he imparted the play instructions. Although it is more in vogue than ever, the no-huddle, or hurry-up, offense, has been around for decades. In the 1980s, Sam Wish, the coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, introduced the system to the N.F.L. In the early 1990s, Buffalo Bills quarterback Jim Kelly ran a hurry-up offense called the K-Gun that led to 4 consecutive Super Bowl appearances. The main objective of the Buffalo offense was to string plays together so rapidly the defense did not have time to insert fresh players or to substitute strategically to better contest something like an obvious passing situation. That remains a primary goal of the modern N.F.L. no-huddle offense. In fact, Baltimore Ravens tight end Benjamin Watson called the term no-huddle a misnomer. It implies we're rushing, which is not always true, Watson said. What we're really trying to do is outfox the defense. So we're just not huddling. Still, there are times in every NFL game when both teams will universally huddle, during the mandated TV timeouts. The TV timeouts are when we can interact, Giants quarterback Eli Manning said. You can go over a route change with a wide receiver or talk to your lineman. Guys will be encouraging each other, 2 minutes to go, let's punch it into the end zone. It does happen. And then play resumes and the team might not convene again until the game is over. It is a style of football that does not, however, unnerve the youngest players in the NFL. Many of them have been playing in no-huddle or hurry-up offenses since they were young teenagers. I've never huddled, Chris Moore, the Ravens' second-year wide receiver, said. Not in high school or in college. I don't know any other way. But Moore, 24, wonders if he might someday have to learn to huddle. Why? Because opposing teams are cracking the no-huddle code words and signals that offenses use to communicate on the field. Maybe eventually they'll get so good at stealing signals, Moore said, we'll have to come back into the huddle so we're the only ones who know what's going on. Which would mean the huddle would be reborn. In a twist, it would be newly valued for the very thing that brought about its invention in the first place, the need for secrecy.